Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to the 11th webinar conducted by Sri Lanka Agricultural Extension Association. Sri Lanka Agricultural Extension Association has been contributing in many ways at community level, at national level, and also at international level to enhance the role of agricultural extension and also to provide proper recognition to the discipline of agricultural extension. With the onset of the COVID pandemic, we thought that it's quite opportune we share timely and insightful information through a series of webinars. I can also very happily inform you that all the previous webinars have been, you can watch all the previous webinars in the YouTube channel of Sri Lanka Agriculture Extension Association. Just type SLAEA and you can go to the YouTube and you can see the previous webinars. Now today, we have a very special webinar. Why it's going to be extra special? It's because of two reasons. Today we have an eminent professional, Professor C. Sivayoganathan. Actually, he needs no introduction. What he has done for this discipline and what he has contributed is immense. And I'm not going to take time to share them because I will not be able to do justice within a limited period of time. So he will be sharing with you on a very timely topic, which is the problems and policies of agricultural extension. And he will use about 30 minutes to share his insights. And after that, we also have Mr. Amal Arunapriya, former Additional Secretary of Ministry of Agriculture. He will share his field level experiences using another 15 to 20 minutes. So after that, you get the opportunity to have a question and answer session. Now, without further ado, may I very kindly and respectfully invite Professor C. Sivayoganathan to share his insights on problems and policies in agricultural extension. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chandana. So as indicated by Chandana, I will take about half an hour to quickly discuss some of the problems and issues, and I'll be relating to whatever experience I have in this field. And if you feel that there's any issue regarding the slides or my speaking, any problems, please let me know. Don't wait till the end if there are any issues regarding the communication. Good. So when we think of Sri Lanka, and going back, I was the first president of the Sri Lanka Agriculture Extension Association. And of course, I'm glad to see that it has now grown to higher levels now. Yes, initially, as far as we are concerned in our country, I'll be relating specifically to Sri Lanka because it's our association, and I'll share some of the ideas relating to Sri Lanka. Now, the major organizations engaged in agriculture extension in our country are the Department of Agriculture, Department of Animal Production and Health, Department of Export Agriculture, the Coconut Cultivation Board and CRI, Coconut Research Institute, then Rubber Development Department and RRI, Rubber Research Institute, then Tea Research Institute and Tea Smallholdings Development Authority. Those are the main ones. And then, of course, we have the SRI, Sugarcane Research Institute, then then we have the MASL, Mahavali Authority of Sri Lanka, or the Mahali Economic Agency. Then, of course, we have the private sector NGOs and the universities, and a few more. So these organizations have been engaged in agriculture extension. Out of all these organizations, the first two, namely the DOA and DAPH, are the two main organizations looking after the crop sector and the livestock sector. And they are the only organizations which have an island-wide extension service in our country. Yeah, to begin with, how serious are we about agricultural extension? I say extension is a neglected component of the knowledge and information system, which consists of the following subsystems, namely research, extension, and the farm. So when we think of these three sections, out of these sections, research naturally engaged in inventing innovations to be adopted by the users, the farmers, extension responsible for transferring these innovations to the farmers. Now, why I say extension component is neglected is something that will clearly appear in the next slide that we see. So here we find in the next slide about the policy. Unfortunately, in my mind, we still don't have a clear written policy on agriculture extension. There were various components of agriculture extension included in the agriculture policy. But when I visited Bangladesh many years back, they had a clear extension policy, which was written down and very elaborate. But unfortunately, we didn't have it. So with that problem, in 1992, a committee, extension committee was established under CARP. I emphasize the word under. CARP is the Council for Agriculture Research Policy. And this committee was entrusted with the responsibility of formulating an extension policy. And in this committee, of course, I was there representing the universities, then the Deputy Director of Extension by those days, Mr. Veera Singh was there, and from all the government organizations, private sector, and also NGOs. There were people in this committee, and we met about 4 or 5 times. And unfortunately, as indicated in the last line, the policy could not be finalized. What happened was we had a few meetings and we prepared the draft policy, and it was finalized with the Deputy Director of Extension those days, and it was sent up to the ministry, and it got lost somewhere there. And unfortunately, we couldn't finalize it. And in that document, we were also emphasizing the fact that extension was given a step-motherly treatment. What I mean by step-motherly treatment was that research was considered to be the prime activity and extension was the second activity. And that is why this particular committee was placed under CARP. And unfortunately, we even suggested a change of name. The change of name was we wanted that to be read as CAREP, C-A-R-E-P, the Council for Agriculture Research and Extension Policy, putting both research and extension at the same level. But of course, it didn't happen. Just to bring in a quick example of this stepmotherly treatment, when I joined the Department of Agriculture in 1972, exactly 50 years back, that time I was a research officer at Mahalpalam Research Station, now it's known as FCRDI, Field Crop Research and Development Institute. And at that time, the salary of the extension worker was 360 rupees per month. But that of the research officer was 450 rupees per month, 3 increments more than the extension officers. And of course, fortunately, with the formulation of the agricultural service, all these were put in par, both research and extension were put at the same level. But however, when it comes to further training, always research was given the upper hand, and it was felt by some people that there was even no need for extension because they were saying that if the innovation is good, it will automatically be adopted by the users or the farmers. It's like selling some products in the grocery market, but that of course wouldn't work. Now, when it comes to agriculture extension, I just focus on some issues we deal with. We deal with agricultural production, nutrition and health to some extent, community development, Food security meaning production, storage, distribution, marketing, and then purchase and proper use of agricultural commodities. So all these things will come in the food security chain. And of course, equity and efficiency. As you know, these two are very important terms that we should deal with. Equity deals with equal distribution to people, and efficiency deal with economic efficiency, taking cost and return. So naturally, these two don't go together. If I'm an economist trying to maximize profit by optimizing production, I will go for efficiency. And if I am a politician trying to canvass for more votes in the elections, I'll go for equity. So this had been always a struggle. How do you come to a balance between these two? And of course, both are important. So this is something that we had to consider in formulating policies. Another important term is coordination. This is a nice term to talk about or write in the blackboard or Magiboard, but it's the most difficult term to practice. Coordinating different extension agencies. I have given example as state, private, and NGOs. I mentioned the state agencies earlier also. So now we have all these three types of organizations engaged in agriculture extension in the country. And how does it happen? To what extent are we coordinating the services of these agencies? Unfortunately, the objectives are generally different. Government agencies like DOA, DAPH, we are more service-oriented, supply-driven. Private organizations, I say largely, I emphasize the word largely profit-motivated. Naturally, they are after profit, but of course, there are many private organizations engaged in good extension service. NGOs, naturally, they are empowerment-oriented, trying to transfer the power to people. So we have to have a good coordination, which is not really there. And again, the next sector is this: linkage with other agencies supplying support services. Extension is one component, of course, an important component in the production of agricultural commodities. And we need all the other support services like irrigation water, other inputs like fertilizers, agrochemicals, then marketing sector. So all these things have to be coordinated in order to come out with an final outcome, very effective and efficient outcome. To some extent, this coordination takes place in practice at the district level, at the divisional level. District level, of course, we do have this district coordinating committee in agriculture. Then we have this, district coordinating committee where we have even the politicians and the heads of various agencies, like the director of provincial director of agriculture, director of extension. Then we have the APH and various other sectors represented, including some other political people. And the district agriculture committee, we have all these people together. So there is one place where the district secretary or the government agent tries to coordinate. Because we find that in some areas, we do have all the services from these three agencies, one area. Even although we talk of NGOs, which are naturally empowerment oriented, service oriented, they also look for pockets of areas where they also could show some results. When I worked with the international agency, GTSAT in Trincomalee, I was always reminded by the team leader, Siva, now it's service all right, but we had to show some output. So if you have to show some output, you have to go to some potential area, not the real needy people. That is where the problem is. So this had been happening and it's still happening. So we had to think of this linkage very seriously. To what extent can we bring out the linkage? Because at the end of the day, what matters is all of us working together. So in order to do extension, we do have various approaches, naturally. So I don't want to go through all that. I just mentioned it in the slide. Just a cross-checking. Are you all with me on this slide on extension approaches? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right,
Yeah.
good. Right. So when we have this different extension approaches. Initially, during the early years, we adopted what's called the technology transfer approach, or the transfer of technology, where the technology invented by the research stations are transferred down to the farmers. It was more of a supply driven approach. You just go and supply whatever available to the farmer. Then, of course, we had a commodity approach for various big commodities like tea, rubber, coconut, and even tobacco. Then an interesting training system, extension system, that's called training and visit. TNV approach was adopted in 1979 as a pilot project in Anuradhapura. And then, of course, later, depending on the success of this project, it was expanded to the whole country. And that was there for about 10 years in our country. And it was going on well. At that time, of course, we had the KVSS, Krishi Vyapti Sevaka, with the Department of Agriculture, and we were able to implement that program that time. Then later, some of the other approaches were adopted here and there, but not on a continuous basis, like project approach, various projects. Most of the projects implemented in our country have an extension component. It's interesting. I'm just relating to another experience when we visited as a team to the Northwestern province. That time, the chief minister, he was a famous UNP politician. He was trying to say, now, doctor, whatever that is done to the farmers, it's extension. So he was trying to actually grab some of the money that was allocated to this project into another project and saying that extension is everything done to farmers. So these are the issues that come up when you try to formulate policies. We had tried this cost-sharing approach or privatizing approach in various projects, but unfortunately, there were very many problems that I'll come to that again later. Educational institution, yes, we do have these 6 or 7 faculties of agriculture at the university level. And of course, we have the other diploma school students. This 2-year diploma, we have 5 schools of agriculture. And then, of course, we do have even the normal schools. So can we use these school students or undergraduates or the diplomates or diploma students and the staff in these faculties for extension work? We have all the pluses and minuses. Unfortunately, not like in US or India, where the university teachers are given a dual appointment. They work for greater time in the university and to some time, a few years in the practicing departments like DOA, DAPH, CRA, TRA, etc. But we don't have that system here. So what is necessary is even for the educational institutions to get involved in extension work. But there are some limited examples like the Faculty of Agriculture at Peradeniya, we have the Agriculture Education Unit. They do some programs. In Ruhuna University Faculty of Agriculture, they have been doing some program. Rajarata, Sabragamu, they have been doing. But in addition, of course, the projects, training programs conducted by the final year students specializing in agriculture extension. They used to go to the field, we call it as a productivity enhancement training program, and they do conduct training programs with farmers. But these are ad hoc, limited things. And another approach we had been implementing for a longer period was this integrated extension approach, which was introduced in 1993, I think under the SAEP, Second Agriculture Extension Project. And it was supposed to be for 6 years, but unfortunately we had to wind it up a year early. We wound it up in 1998 due to various problems that we had. That again, I'll come to it later. In this particular approach, we had integrated 4 organizations: the Department of Agriculture, Department of Animal Production and Health, then the Department of Export Agriculture and the Coconut Cultivation Board. They were integrated together, and it was like a temporary marriage, and then it was divorced like in 5 years' time. Why? Because of some problems that we look into later. Another issue is, of course, staffing. Extension density, that is the number of farm families catered for, served by a field extension worker. We do have big variation. especially the main department, the Department of Agriculture. In the provincial areas, we do have about 2 to 3,000 farm families to be served by the agriculture instructor. But in the interprovincial areas, it's something better. To my knowledge, it's maybe about 1,000 farm families per extension worker. And the shortage, that had been a big issue. And I understand for many years now, the staff officers of the agricultural service were not appointed. And I do know, especially visiting Jaffna there, the provincial director used to tell me, "Sir, Mr. Saukumar used to tell me, sir, I am managing with so many people with a lot of problems, because many of these 5 district division, the district deputy directors, they were holding acting appointments as deputy director for extension. And there are many vacancies at all levels. So this had been another big problem in our extension service that got worsened, especially below. If you look at the devolution of extension services, as you all know, the extension service was devolved under the 13th Amendment to the Constitution in 1989. The main problem that we had in this was, along with that, we had all the field level extension workers, KVSs, removed from the Department of Agriculture. And they were taken to the Department of Agrarian Development, that time Department of Agrarian Services. And because of that, there was a big vacuum at the field level. And before that, fortunately, we had about, the extension density was about 750 to 800. That is, each KVS or Krishi Vyapti server had to serve about 750 to 800 families. That is how we were able to implement the training and visit system properly. But with this, there was a big vacuum at the field level, and the contact person became the agriculture instructor naturally. An agriculture instructor had to cover some 3,000 to 4,000 farm families, which was a very difficult task. So there are both positive and negative impacts of this devolution. The positive fact is that it becomes a demand-driven service, because most of the issues are identified at the provincial level, at the field level. So we will be catering to the real latent or known needs of the farmers, right? So that way, that was better. But on the other hand, there was a problem of actually separating into 9 cells and then coordinating. Again, I remember when we met the secretary to the ministry at that time on a project as a team studying something in extension, he was telling me, now, Siva, those days I could get anything done in Anuradhapura by giving a call to the agriculture instructor or the AO direct from Colombo. But now I had to go through the provincial director, deputy director, all that was a big issue, and I couldn't get anything done under this system. So there are various issues that we could possibly discuss at the end. Naturally, because of this big problem of extension density, trying to cover a large number of farm families, we couldn't simply rely on the individual home visits, individual extension service. So we had to go for more and more group and mass methods. And when it comes to these mass methods, naturally, there's a difficulty to cater to specialized clients. Of course, if we have small groups or individuals, it may be easier to meet them and discuss their own problems. But unfortunately, with the mass service, for example, if you take the agriculture extension service through the radio, then it is island-wide service. But fortunately, then we had a balance coming to these regional extensions service through the regional media, say Rajarata service, then the upcountry service, like that Mahavali community radio. So we were able to come to that level by using some regional things. And of course, nowadays, the last point is ICTs have become in a big way. That is what is being adapted to a great extent now, although we say we are in a position to adopt all these information and communication technologies, the new technology. There are various issues. I do know that a toll-free extension service was introduced at Gannoru, and many of these messages are now sent through SMSs. they do have their positive and negative impacts. But with the present situation, we had to go more into these group and mass methods. Another important issue for policy making is this linkage with research and extension. Naturally, research is done by all the research stations. If you take agriculture department, we have all these regional research stations, and export agriculture, we have the research station at Matale, and then of course APNH, we have the research station in Gannaru. So all these research organizations, and of course the university research conducted by the undergraduate, postgraduate students, as well as the staff. The issue is to what extent is this linked to the field problems in order to make sure the inventions or the innovations that are coming out of the research stations are adaptable to the farmer. We have to specifically look at the felt needs of the farmers, and that of course is expected to be communicated to research by the extension agencies. That is where the relevance of research comes in. And of course, we do have various mechanisms in our country. If you take the crop sector, field crop sector especially, we have this RTWG or the PTWG, the regional technical working group or the provincial technical working group meeting at the beginning of every season to, and in this meeting, we have all the researchers, extensionists, educationists, and the farm leaders together, and some linkage is created, and then the research, we try to make it more relevant to the farmers. But of course, some of the SMSs, subject matter specialists, or even some university teachers, they take part in extension training programs in the field. So there is, to some extent, there is linkage, but there's a lot to be desired. And unfortunately, what I want to make a point here is that we sometimes come out with a blanket recommendation to all the farmers in the country and then blame a group of them for not adopting these innovations, saying that they are useless, they are traditional. But unfortunately, we don't give a relevant innovation to them. And we don't have the facilities, of course. If you take a simple example, we recommend a rice variety. Whether it's a small farmer or a large farmer, whether it's a poor farmer or rich farmer, all of them are given the same thing. So we do not have package of recommendation. That of course is easily said than done. That's another thing that we have to look at. Is it possible for us to recommend maybe 2 or 3 types of innovations that would cater to these different types of farmers? Issue of gender. Yes, this is very sensitive, especially with NGOs and other organizations. One thing is staff. Within the staff, the gender ratio, male, female, sex ratio, and also within the clans. Say, even if you take, for example, the major crop rice production, what percentage of the labor force used in rice production are females? What percent are males? Similarly, what percent of the field level extension staff are males or females? Third question that we have is it really necessary to have female staff advising the female clans? So naturally, these are things that are open to be discussed. In looking at that, I find that nowadays, one interesting example is when I was a student in the Faculty of Agriculture in 1967 to 71, we had 27 in our batch, and out of 27, there were only 3 girls, 24 boys. But now if you go to the Peradeniya Agriculture faculty, I'm sure nearly 2/3 or over 60% of the students are females. If students in agriculture are females. So things have changed over time. And another issue is now, if you think of field extension activity, I don't think we really need female staff to advise female farmers. There are, of course, some sensitive areas like some Muslim areas where if a male extension worker go to the house, the female there may not come out of the house. Those are rare. And also this is necessary in medical extension. For example, if you are talking about family planning extension, naturally, lady would feel much more comfortable to go to a lady gynecologist for advice. But I don't think it is that serious when it comes to our agriculture. Another issue is to what extent and how our extension staff can get involved in non-extension activities, such as supply of inputs and other services. There's no point in disseminating innovations that are even adaptable without giving the necessary inputs to the farmers. So the input supply, naturally, seed supply is done to a great extent by the Department of Agriculture, but others are also doing it. But water, irrigation water is done by the irrigation department in major irrigation schemes, and by the in terms of this small tank irrigation, we have the other agencies doing the supply of irrigation water. So these are things that are there. And of course, inputs like fertilizers and agrochemical service are supplied by private agencies. Marketing service is done by some other agencies, government and private. So as far as extension staff are concerned, their main function, our main function is of course educating, but it doesn't just stop there. We do have an indirect role, indirect function of trying to help the farmers to obtain the necessary other services. I always say it's like a switchboard function of a telephone operator. But what she does is she just sits with the keyboard there, and then whenever there is some telephone call coming to someone, she will be directing the call to the proper person. Similarly, we as extension workers, being in the field, knowing the details of all the farmers, we could serve this function and then guide and direct these farmers to the respective agencies to get their services, rather than saying that this is not my job. Then privatization, I have already told you, is demand driven, but there are various problems. Again, I will tell you one example. When I was working in a project as a local consultant with a foreign communication expert from UK, I told him this privatizing will not work in our country because our farmers are poor. They can't afford to pay. Then his argument was that, no, Siva, if you are giving some service that is payable, in other words, that is worth paying, definitely the farmers will come out and pay. Then his argument was that even these leaflets or bulletins that we give free, at least charge a small percent, 5%. And if something worth is there, they will definitely use it. Otherwise, they'll take these papers and then use them to wrap some food parcels and things like that. So his argument was that we had to start in a small way. I do agree. We cannot have a blanket privatization, but we may have to go into pockets where we could have some profit. That is the issue there. And I'm now coming to the last slide. Accountability. Accountability is there for any service, any officer working. In our case, the major problem is the difficulty in evaluating the extension service. Because the outcome of extension service, we look at the output, the production. But unfortunately, the production depends on too many factors, including extension. So it's rather difficult to isolate the effects of extension out of the final production. That can be done to some extent by statistics and by incorporating extension as one of the variables in the multiple regression function. And statistically, we can try to solve it. Again, I will just narrate one example quickly. When I was sitting in the PGIA comprehensive examination, the DD extension, the pediatric extension was there, and one of the students was the extension officer from Ampara, and he was telling, so we had a very good extension service in Ampara. This time the yield had really increased a lot. Then the question asked by this DD was that, are you sure that the yield increase was because of extension? Then he said, yes, sir, we conducted so many farmer training programs, so many demonstrations, blah, blah, and he was explaining. Then he listened to all that and said, now look, do you know that there was very good rainfall this year as compared to the other years, and the yield increase is greatly due to rain. So these are the issues that we have. It's rather difficult to prove the productivity of extension. And finally, the sustainability. Naturally, as you all know, we spend a little money. The statistic may be wrong or may to be corrected. Nearly about 1% of the agricultural GDP, not the total GDP, agricultural GDP for extension. And out of this money, even 70-75% of the money goes to salaries and allowances. So in other words, it goes into the pockets of the working staff. And only 20-25% of the total budget go to the real recipients or the farm families. That is regarding financial sustainability, and of course organizational, as I told you earlier, like in the IAES, Integrated Agriculture Extension Service, we had problems of keeping these four organizations together. And there also we did this midterm evaluation, and we found the field extension team consisting of the agriculture instructor, livestock development instructor, extension officer from export agriculture, and the coconut development officer, the lowest level officers of these four agencies. They were nicely working as a team. But unfortunately, the top people, the director generals of agriculture, animal production and health, export agriculture, and the general manager of the coconut cultivation board, they were meeting very rarely. So it was rather difficult to keep the top people together as a team compared to keeping the bottom level officers in the team. So these are some of the major issues I wanted to raise, and I think my time is up. So I'll wind up there, and over to you, Chandan.
Thank you, sir. Very insightful comments on agricultural extension, how it has been over a period of time. I'm sure there are interesting questions or comments to be made. But before that, let me invite Mr. Amal Arunapriya, the former Additional Secretary of Ministry of Agriculture, to share his experiences using about 15 minutes. Mr. Arunapriya. Mr. Arunapriya. Till Mr. Arunapriya joins, I would share a very painful reality. Sir was telling that there is no extension policy, written policy in agricultural extension. Unfortunately, I also had some experience in 2019. We were working about the overarching agricultural policy. And then the Sri Lanka Agricultural Extension Association, we conducted a national level conference in 2016, and then an international conference in 2018, and we drafted some recommendations, policy recommendations. Now, in these policy recommendations, I must also give credit to Dr. Vijay Jayatilaka. He was involved in drafting them. Actually, we can see him attending today as well. We identified that there is no proper conceptual clarity about agricultural extension, like that they had to be involved in supply of subsidiary and all that. So those were included to the overarching agricultural extension policy. Then in 2020, there came a new minister for agriculture, and he formed a committee to have a new policy for agriculture. So that he wanted to get the political mileage. And then you know how it ended up in a year later in 2021, trying to go for carbonic, full organic agriculture. So this is how the unfortunate reality unfolds in the country, and we as professionals how to get together to address this, because politicians alone cannot do this if we officials and professionals do not support the way that they want to do. Mr. Arunapriya, are you there? Mr. Amal Arunapriya? Mr. Arunapriya? He's joining. I think he informed he had some technical issue, but here, Mr. Arunapriya, can you hear us?
Yes. Now can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Mr. Arunapriya, you can take about 15 minutes. You can take about 15 minutes and share your field level experiences.
Yeah, actually, Dr. Chandra, extremely sorry because of my something wrong with my laptop.
So that's okay. That's okay.
I joined with my handphone, no problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's okay.
So, actually,
Please.
Professor Sivaganathan expressed some very good points about agriculture extension. So let me again very briefly go through about our agriculture extension system evolution from 1940s up to present situation. So in 1940s, actually, Sri Lanka Agriculture Extension Association formed. So then 1912, so Department of Agriculture was established. In 1925, TRI and RRI research station established. In 1930, Batalagoda Paddy Research Station established. Then 1939, there was a turning point that 74 agriculture diploma holders were recruited in the Department of Agriculture as agriculture instructors. That is the actually beginning of the systematic agriculture extension system in the Department of Agriculture. So then 1952, agriculture a complete division agriculture extension system was further strengthened in 1952. And in 1957, the district agriculture extension officer, we call DAEO position, I think Professor Sivaganathan will correct me if something wrong, I think no, but in 1957, DAEO system was established.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
To strengthen the agriculture extension system in Sri Lanka. Then 1964, again, separate extension training division was formed. And similarly, Department of Agrarian Service, the Agrarian Service Department also established, and the Agrarian Service Center system started. In 1970, Honorable Minister Hector Cobagadua's period further strengthened as the agrarian service centers. Again, that agriculture extension system was further strengthened. So then 1979, as Professor Sivaganathan very clearly explained, 1979 to 80 period, we had a very good training and visit agriculture extension system. Actually, it was considered as the best extension system in South Asian region. So these under this TNV research extension system, training and visit extension system, adaptive research program started. Then subject matter specialist appointments were done. Then as Professor Sivaganathan mentioned, Krushikarma Vyapti Sevaka Niladhari, right? Grassroots level agriculture extension officer was established, and fortnight training program we started. It was very successfully conducted. Every other week, all the KVSs meet farmer leaders, farmer representatives, farmers in the field, and get back their field level problems into research level. So that was the bridge linked by Department of Agriculture with the farmer societies. Then unfortunately, 1980s, late in the 80s period, the KVS were removed, and for the Janasavya political campaign, something like a household development program, household upliftment program. But anyway, that very badly affected to the whole agriculture extension system in Sri Lanka. Then 1993 to 1998, the second agriculture extension project was launched. So in there, again, now the KVS are totally removed from the Department of Agriculture. As Professor Sivayoganathan mentioned, all one AI had to cover nearly about 3,000, 4,000 farm families. So as a solution under the second agriculture extension project, the one AI division was divided into 5-6 geographic areas based on the farmer community-based organizations. So then the producer groups formed. So then nuclear point of village. So we call producer societies that was formed, and through this nuclear point of village system, the Department of Agriculture instructor gave the agriculture extension messages to the farming community. Then 1912, the district director of extension system established, district director system. So under the Ministry of Agriculture, each district secretariat, one class 1 agriculture service officer was appointed as a district director. His or her major role was to coordinate, collaborate, facilitate the provincial agriculture extension program and the central government agriculture extension program. So he had to give the technical leadership to the district agriculture committee chaired by the GA and facilitate the whole extension program and the development program in the country. So likewise, we had a revolutionary process in agriculture extension system in Sri Lanka. Now, under the provincial system, under the 13th Amendment, provincial system, the provincial specific development grant, it's called PSDG grant. Under this PSDG grant, provincial agriculture extension system is function. So again, provincial technical working groups are formed. So now, little by little, we are rectifying our extension lapses. So, and recently, not recently, actually 2-3 years back, below the AI grade, technical assistants who are having agriculture diplomas have recruited in many provinces. So now some grassroots level technical assistants are available in the field. So with this limited number of technical assistants, our agriculture instructors, both in interprovincial agriculture extension areas and the provincial extension areas, are conducting their agriculture extension program. So this is actually the present situation of agriculture extension in Sri Lanka. So I think with this brief note, Dr. Chandana and Professor Sivayoganathan, thank you very much. So we will ask the participants to make the clarifications. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Arunapriya. So you got the opportunity today to listen to an eminent academic in the form of Professor C. Sivayoganathan, and also to a senior practitioner in the form of Mr. Arunapriya about the agricultural extension system in Sri Lanka. So within a period less than 1 hour, you have listened to a wealth of facts, information, and insights. So we can allocate about 10 minutes for you to ask questions, if any. Please feel free to ask questions. And also if you want to put it in the chat, that's also all right. So please make use of this opportunity. Opportunities for yours. You can ask any questions or you can share insight. Yes, Mr. Karmatilaka.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Chandana. Professor Sivayoganathan, Amal. Professor Sivayoganathan, you mentioned that the coordination between extension organizations is very difficult, and it is not happening today, even in the past. at the same time, you mentioned something about the extension approaches also. So you mentioned 9 extension approaches. Out of that 9 extension approaches, I believe I have some experiences. I had some experiences regarding the commodity-based development program, including the extension also. It's very, very easy to coordinate all agencies, or I mean, the coordinate between agencies, including extension agencies, if we are implementing a commodity-based program. For a good example, I should say, the maize development in the country. Before, this is not a question, Chandana, this is the comment to those 2 presentations. And in addition to those presentations, before 2090, the maize was grown only in Chinas, in highlands. But gradually we introduced it to the paddy fields and wet zone everywhere. Then sometimes back, I think 90s, the government appointed a task force to develop the maize in the country. So all people, all representatives of government sector, private sector, even NGOs, all were there, and they prepare a program, development program, including the extension program. We had a very good farmer training program, as well as other technology transfer, including the seeds and everything. So that my point here is if we are implementing a commodity-based development program or extension program, it is easier to coordinate between agencies. That's my point. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karunatilaka. So he made this comment in addition to what was shared, and it's very well taken. Thank you for that insight. I can see a comment from Dr. Jayatilaka. Sir, would you like to speak, Dr. Jayatilaka?
Thank you, Chandana. First, Professor Sivayoganathan, good to see you and nice to listen to you after a long time. Amal, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. I have 2 serious concerns when it comes to extension. Number 1 is that I think overall, Professor Sivayoganathan did mention about this. We have a serious governance issue that since independence, Sri Lankan agriculture governance system has been fractured. At the turn of independence, we had one department and government entity, the agriculture department, that took care of extension, including plantation sector, livestock sector, everything. But for political reasons, this system has been fractured into a numerous ministries, departments, research institutes, etc., all coming under different ministries. So then the government creates a problem, and we say we also then the result is that coordination becomes a huge issue. Then my question is, where have we been? Where have the extension professionals been? Where is our evidence that this is actually a problem? So we need to have an evidence-based approach to lobby the government to get something different done. So linked to that is my second issue, is that we have in agriculture extension, compared to some of the other sectors like engineering or medicine, I think, to be very frank, we have a serious human resource issue, that we have extension personnel trained in universities as well as schools of agriculture. And if you look at the challenge that they have to face in agriculture extension, it's not merely technical agriculture that they have to be competent in. They need to be aware of the political dynamics of what is going on. They need to have much better skills in negotiation, in leadership, in actually taking governance issues and to be able to address those issues. So the techno-agriculture and knowledge and competencies in a modern, complicated society are simply inadequate to address the concerns of producers and processors and the agriculture sector. So the second challenge that we have is that how do we then change the way we train agriculture extension personnel to be able to perform a meaningful change-oriented role in agriculture extension, not simply transferring knowledge and technology only. So that's my second point. Thank you.
Yeah. Shall I also respond to some, Chandana?
Yeah, yes, sir. Please.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Now, Karu raised a good point, and then Jayatilaka also mentioned about some of these issues. Yes, I also feel that an agriculture extension worker should be an all-rounded personality, not simply knowing agricultural technology. For instance, when I was a student long time, 50 years back or so, in the faculty, we were told that agriculture definition was like this: growing crops and rearing livestock, full stop. Agriculture was simply defined as growing crops and rearing livestock. In fact, when I was a student, I didn't even hear a word of extension in the whole 4 years of my stay in the Faculty of Agriculture. That was the story those days. But as rightly pointed out by Jayatilakam, it has to be changed, and we have changed. So from the time that we didn't hear a word of extension, we were able to create, actually very quickly in a minute, I'll tell you, this was in 1975, we introduced half a subject agricultural extension as part paper in the final year. And then 1983, the name of the department was changed from Economics and Farm Management to Agriculture, Economics and Extension. And in December 1995, we even created the Department of Agriculture Extension. I don't want to elaborate all those, there's no time. And the amount of difficulty I had in the faculty board meetings, trying to really canvass for a department. And I was criticized by saying that, Siva, you are introducing all the arts faculty subjects into the Faculty of Agriculture. But as Jayatilaka said, yes, we do need these arts faculty subjects for an all-rounded agriculture extension worker. And we are much better, and a lot more left to be desired. Thank you.
Sir, I would like to put an anecdote to what you said. Now we have this 21st century skills of a graduate. So most of these socio-economic skills that you took leadership to introduce to the Department of Agricultural Extension now are being very much valued at the curriculum discussions.
Yes, good.
And there was a question from Mr. Rohit Alinage. He was asking about what are the main policy recommendations made by Sri Lanka Agricultural Extension Association. I will read them very quickly. We had 7. First one is to deploy adequate number of professional, competent agricultural extension personnel at field and higher levels in organization hierarchies. Second, optimize the use of information communication technology in agricultural extension program activities. Third, diversify the extension service delivery model, private-public partnerships, increase producer groups and private entity initiatives by assessing their efficacy, identify to match different contexts. Fourth, undertake periodic technology and know-how needs assessment, updated knowledge of technology requirements of producers and related research needs. Fifth, integrate extension into the research and development system and prioritize extension research. Sixth, network all agricultural producers and key agricultural agencies and stakeholders. Seventh, link agricultural extension efforts to sectoral performance targets to ensure accountability. These recommendations were incorporated to the overarching agricultural policy, but unfortunately, because of the political reasons and also partly the officials are to be blamed, because of that, it had never come into the fruition. That is why even now we are left with no written policy on agricultural extension in Sri Lanka. We can give an opportunity for another question or comments. Mr. Gamage, do you wish to ask something?
Yeah. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, it's about, I mean, we see that most of the extension staff are recruited from the schools of agriculture, like in the past. And in the past, people like Mr. Albert, Mr. Sikurajapati, and people like that who had worked outside in the field for about 10 years were recruited by the Department of Agriculture. These are, I think, there are different categories as lecturers of the School of Agriculture. They may not have been well versed in some other subjects in that, but they knew how to use that and as an extension officer. So training such extension officers, you take, because I know where you take a fresh graduate from the faculty to work in the School of Agriculture. I mean, they are good. I'm not telling that they are not good. They are good, but they don't have that field experience. So with that knowledge, these diploma holders go out to work in the field as extension officers. So I feel that the old system should be continued. At least the people who are recruited to the School of Agriculture as lecturers should be from the field staff who had experience working there with the farmers. That's my point I want to put.
Sivaganathan sir, would you like to comment on that?
Can I?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I think that again, I'm going back to my point of agriculture extension being more mindful and professional and evidence-based. When we say that one group of people who are better than the other group in extension, we must have the evidence, not anecdotal, not emotional, just because they are similar to my background, that is insufficient in actual policy making and decision making. So I think in extension, there are lots of areas in which we need that evidence-based knowledge based on it we should be talking, and we should also be able to take decisions on. So when we make a proposition that a certain type of person is better at a job, it can't be totally based on our experiential knowledge alone. I think we need to have the evidence. That is why I think, Chandana, you mentioned about this agriculture extension conference. So I think conferences and seminars are important to share that kind of knowledge. Such as this in a webinar, we should have that knowledge to share so that we are more sound and scientific in what we are talking and in what we are saying and what we are actually suggesting. Thank you. I'm just voicing a personal opinion. You may agree or disagree, that doesn't matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that, Chandana? Because I was in the School of Agriculture from 69 to 71 as a student, and people who taught me have had so much experience working in extension, and whatever knowledge I gained from them, I used, and I have first-hand information working how they approach certain. I mean, it's not just looking at the cow and say doing this. They knew what the farmer wants, and they knew how to focus us with our knowledge into the system. So what Dr. Vijay Jayatilaka just mentioned, I got that experience working with people like that, people like Mr. Senanayaka. They were very good. I mean, sometimes I hate them during the stay there at that time. I have never worked like that. But they really focused us with the extension abilities. So I think I have got first-hand experience work studying from them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sivaganathan sir, I think you can make some comment before we conclude the session. Also, I would like to remind you from September 2022, we have been conducting this webinar series every other Thursday. So we used to have 2 webinars each month. But actually in February, we could have only one. So to compensate that, we are having a webinar next Thursday as well. That is on 2nd of March. That webinar will be about home gardening and edible landscaping. So it is about how can you use this landscaping and make your home gardening look more attractive. So please join that. And now I invite Professor C. Sivayoganathan for the concluding comments before we conclude this webinar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chandana. Of course, I don't like to do this overtime because we have gone very much beyond time. So I wish to thank the association for giving me an opportunity for sharing some of the experiences that I had. I'm also really glad to see some of the people whom I know, whom I work with, and whom I taught. So it was very enriching and very interesting experience. Unfortunately, the time is limited. No one can increase the time of a day for more than 24 hours, even if you want to do it. So given the restrictions, I'm sure these types of webinars will help us to share some of our knowledge and experience in the future too. And I wish the association could conduct this regularly in the future. Thanks, Chandana.
Thank you, sir. I would like to thank Professor C. Sivayoganathan and also Mr. Amal Arunapriya and all of you who commented and made insightful sharings of knowledge on agricultural extension. Yes, together, let's try to discuss, agree, disagree, and to develop our agricultural extension profession, because this makes a big difference in terms of the final outcome. Thank you all, and we conclude for now.
All right, thank you.